It's time for a movie to take us on a road trip. Welcome to the Film Threat Podcast. I am Chris Gore, and if you've been watching this on YouTube or listening to this podcast, you know that I'm a big fan of independent film. Yes, that's the whole purpose of Film Threat. But one of the genres that you see come up in indie film quite a bit is the road trip movie. That soulful journey across the country, and I am a big fan of that sort of subgenre of independent film. When it's done really well, it's something that can be emotional, funny, and that certainly is the case with this film, The In-Between, which I'm excited to talk to the director and co-writer. Mindy Bledsoe is with me today. How are you, Mindy?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, Chris.
Yeah, it is kind of a thing that you see in independent film. You see like a road trip type of film, but you really got me with this one.
Thank you.
And I gotta say, I think because it's like, that's a cliche, a road trip movie, but when you combine it with what you did with the journeys of these two characters, which I have to ask how you found your actors for this. And then secondly, the thing that really knocks it out of the park for me, and you sucked me in the last sort of third act of the movie, that music. But let's start right with like, how did you find this cast and what led to telling this type of road trip journey?
Well, the making of this movie is just as interesting as the movie. So it all started when I met Jennifer Stone. She was in a movie that I was editing, and my working partner had shot the movie. And he told me, you have to meet Jennifer Stone. You guys are going to be good friends. And we had an age difference, so I didn't quite believe it. But as soon as Jen and I met, we just became really good friends. We bonded instantly. Jennifer Stone in real life has type 1 diabetes. And in real life, I have complex regional pain syndrome type 2. So we bonded over what we kind of called an invisible illness, which is something that, we carry around every day, but when you look at us, it doesn't necessarily scream sick or anything. And we had talked about one day bringing those kind of characters to screen, or characters with those traits. Flash forward 7 months after our meeting, and Rob Sinska came back from a trip abroad shooting in India, and we had some extra money, and we were talking about going on a vacation. And then we stopped and said, wait, why don't we just take this money and go shoot an indie movie? Like, let's put the money in the basket and go to town. It was my last summer in my 30s, and I hadn't directed a feature film yet. So, the three of us, Jennifer Stone, myself, and Rob Sinska, we sat down over a weekend and we discussed what The In-Between was. And we came up with the two characters and the basic storyline. We knew that if we were going to do a road trip movie, we had to have music. And before we continued writing, we stopped, and Rob and I stopped and considered this one band that we are obsessed with and we love, and we knew from our time in Shreveport, Louisiana. And that band was called Hydrogen Child, formerly known as Superwater Sympathy. And we gave them a ring and we told them what we were doing, and they very graciously offered their catalog for us to use. So we knew the music when we started filming. So that was incredibly helpful.
And thankfully, thankfully your characters knew the music as well.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Well, we listened to it enough.
The thing I want to ask you is about when it comes to road trip movies, like it's really not about the actual physical trip. It is like, and I feel your film does a really good job of getting into the deeper layers. This is not about getting from point A to point B, at least physically. It's more about getting from point A to point B in sort of internal, more emotional journey. Can you tell me about that? Because like I said, like you really got me in the third act, which I don't want to I don't want to ruin anything, but like that third act, it's kind of all comes together.
Yeah. Well, number one, when we knew that we were going to incorporate characters with an invisible illness, my number one rule is it can't be about those illnesses. And in the same way, we didn't want a road trip movie to be about a road trip. So just straight off, like those were just rules we'd lived by. So it's as to try to avoid some of the tropes and just tell a different story. Because a road trip is a metaphor for a journey of what characters are going through in life. This is exactly that. They're in the in-between of the beginning to the end. And the third act, you know, it shows their journey even more and as a metaphor for a road trip. So, it was important that it touched on the aspects of a road trip and it touched on the aspects of health, but it wasn't about that whatsoever. It had to be about these two characters with an invisible illness that we knew people could relate to. That was our goal.
And I feel like you achieved it so well in this because, like I say, a road trip movie is something that it's an independent. That's a type of independent film, but the way you approached it, I thought was fantastic. Also visually, I mean,
Obsinska.
It looks beautiful. It looks beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Can you tell me about this one? There's a scene. It's early in the movie. There's like, I guess I would describe it as the party scene, and then the consequences of maybe going hard when it comes to partying. Where did that come from? It looks like it was fun to shoot that. Tell me about that sort of party scene, and then the consequences after, which I'm really glad that you dealt with, like the day after. Having a great time.
Well, a lot of times when we see characters with any kind of illness depicted in film or any kind of show, they're not having the exact same fun that able-bodied people are having. So that was important. Like, you know what? We're sick people, but we still live life and we still deal with the consequences. So it was just important. If we're going to Vegas, then we're going to try, because life is life and we should try to live life. And then you just have to deal with the consequences. But also with both of these characters, they're still trying to find their balance within who they are as people and how they deal with their own illnesses. And that's not always a perfect journey of right choices. And any person who's been sick knows that. You don't always make the right choices because you're tired of being a sick person, So you make bad choices because you want to feel alive and live. So it's nice to see that depicted in a way that's not death related. A lot of times when you see someone with chronic pain, it's just so dire and it doesn't give any hope. I've been living with this disease for 18 years. I have my ups and downs, but I still live life. And I haven't seen characters really like that depicted on screen. And the same with Jennifer Stone, who has a much more recognizable illness in diabetes, but especially she's type 1 and she was diagnosed later in life. So she has kind of a special case. And that's not depicted well in film either. So it was just our main goal was to do that. Show representation for the people who don't really get representation. Sorry, I just started rambling there.
No, rambling is good. I just can you describe what you have had to deal with personally, and then also how did you face that in like, I'm gonna go make a feature now. I'm gonna make a feature film, but how did you balance like what you had to deal with on a day-to-day basis, and then also do your job as director?
Well, so a little bit more about the behind the scenes of it. So, we wrote the script in I think it was about a week and a half. And 1 month later, we hit the road for the road trip to film. We actually drove 4,300 miles. We actually drove the road trip that these characters are on. And we did it all in 14 days, which is absolutely insane and crazy. So we're literally traveling on day to day, filming in the car, trying to get places. We would land in locations. We scouted on the road. All of the hotels and motels that you see, we slept in. So it was almost almost a method kind of thing, but still trying to keep it separate from who we are. So anyone that knows making independent film in 14 days and 4,500 miles is absolutely insane. The big thing that we had is we had an incredibly small crew. There was just 4 of us. It was me and Jen in one vehicle, with Rob Sinska, our cinematographer, floating between our vehicle and the follow vehicle, who was driven by Chris Lyon, our producer and sound guy. So there was just 4 of us on this trip. And we've all worked together before, and we've all worked in the industry before, and we just took our knowledge and put our heads down, trusted each other, laid our egos aside, and said, we're going to do this. It's the most incredible experience of my life. Like, I mean, we went to our own little filmmaking war, and we came out with a movie that we're just absolutely incredibly proud of. And everything surrounding it was just so serendipitous. You know, when you're making a film, it can fall apart at any time. And for us, everything seemed to fall upwards. I knock on wood, I would love to have this kind of experience again. You love the third act so much. I mean, my favorite story is the character, the actor that plays the Miles, Mads' brother. His name is Rain Jameson. The original script, when we left Los Angeles, there wasn't a brother in the script. There was the mother, Mad's character with her mother, that was all there, but she didn't have a brother. Somewhere outside of Las Vegas, Jennifer Stone got a call from her friend Rain, and Rain was also on a road trip with his brother. And they were just talking about where we were going to be. And he's like, oh, I could kind of be in Portland when you guys are. If you need any help on the film, I'll come help out. And Jen told me that. And I was like, Annie's an actor? Like, how much is he willing to do? And she's like, you know, anything. And I was like, can I write you into the script? Would you act for me? And he's like, yeah. So I wrote in the brother while we were driving from locations, and he's the linchpin for the whole movie. He really brings it all together and kind of keeps it on a stable ground. So when I say serendipitous or failing upwards or falling upwards, it was just everything that came our way, we stayed open to and said, this is how to improve it. And that small little brain trust we had of 4 people, with egos aside and everything, just that one goal, 4,500 miles, and make the best movie that we can with these little parameters that we set for ourselves. And we couldn't be more proud. So,
well, really, it ends up being kind of like a magical journey, right? In that sense, where it does kind of all come together. What have you, because you said you worked previously in the industry, so you obviously have worked on films. You took that knowledge into this.
Yes.
If a good friend of yours was going to embark on making their first indie feature, what would be the one piece of advice that you would give your friend? I have to know.
Oh, it depends on what kind of movie they're making, first off, before I give you advice. Secondly, for like a flat advice, something I never really considered was I edit, and I've edited plenty of times, and I've edited short films that I've done, but this was my first feature. Really, really love your script and story, because you have to watch the movie more than you can even comprehend. And all you're going to do eventually is start breaking down everything that you did wrong. And if you don't love the script and the story that you're telling, it will destroy your stomach. So before you ever set out to make a story, to tell a story, you better connect with it. You better connect with it, because it's going to be in your face and it's going to eat away at you if you don't like it.
I think that's sound advice. If you don't love your material, how are you going to spend years with it? Because you really, I mean, it really is it's a process that's years in the making.
Yeah.
The film is out now.
Yeah.
At least at the time that this will run, and the film is out. And then additionally, we're going to be doing a watch party, and I'm excited to see the cast and, you know, your other people who are involved in the production for our watch party on the Film Threat YouTube channel. So if you're listening to this on Spotify or whatever, come to the Film Threat YouTube channel and check out the watch party. Mindy Bledsoe, thank you so much for joining us on the Film Threat podcast. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Chris. It was a blast. Thank you.